Hey crew, I've got the key to this 25 Audi S3. I'm out here in Oceanside, California for the first drive event, and we are gonna take it for a drive. But first, let's check out how it looks on the inside and outside. So this updated S3 for 25 gets a new single frame grille, which is a bit softer looking than the previous version. With the black optic package, the Audi rings are blacked out. There are new projector LED headlights with LED TRLs and turn signals. Those are above some functional cooling at the corners. At the sides, the S3 as standard gets 18-inch wheels. This is a new set of 19-inch wheels wrapped in Goodyear Eagle F1 summer tires, 235 section front and rear. Within those wheels, this one has red painted calipers. That means this car has the S Sport package with adaptive dampers, and those two piston calipers are clamping on ventilated front discs. The black mirror caps, window trim, and lower sills are part of that black optic package. No big changes to the profile, just some laser etching for the B-pillar. Coming around here to the rear end, there's a subtle lip spoiler in that same red color. Above, LED taillights, and those have been redesigned. Those also have LED turn signals. And that is all above a new, more pronounced diffuser with the signature S quad exhaust ports that are in black with that black optic package. Overall, I do think the changes modernize the S3's look, but they also take a little of the edge out of it. You let me know in the comments if you like this new direction or you prefer the old one. Let's check out the interior. Opening up and looking inside at this fine Nappa leather interior with the Prestige package. As standard, you get leatherette seats with suede inserts. We have a diamond stitched pattern here in red on the doors. Ooh, hard plastics up high. I feel like that should be at least injection molding. You get some ambient lighting, suede insert, injection molding with contrast stitching there, and then a Sonos sound system that is an upgrade over the standard sound system. Sliding in, ducking my head just slightly on the way. At 6 feet tall, my head is up to the roof line, not pressed uncomfortably though with my head back on the headrest. I have some knee room behind my own seat, foot pocket room as well, thigh support, knees are pitched up a little bit at an angle. I do have air vents here, a basic third zone of climate control, and 2 USB-C ports. If I wanted to try to get into the middle seats, I wouldn't want to do this as an adult. First off, I wouldn't have any room for me or my fellow passengers, but also my head's just now against the roof. And then, if there wasn't a passenger in the middle, you would have cup holders with nice padding and leather. All right, back seat's pretty good, except for that. Let's check out the front. Listening to the door close noise, it's a good, solid thud. Smart keyless entry for the front 2 doors. These front bucket seats have some more aggressive bolsters on the side. I like the S emblems on the back. Power adjusting, including lumbar. There is up above a large sunroof. Aluminum accented foot pedals there. What is this? Storage space to the left of the wheel. 2 positions of memory for these seats. We get these new perforated inserts in suede that light up at night, along with the ambient lighting here. 4 one-touch windows, power adjusting and power folding door mirrors. That's the trunk release, and it does raise the lid all the way up. And inside we find 8 cubic feet of space. Not a huge trunk, not a big car, but I think it's okay. And there are 40-20-40 split folding rear seats. You just can't fold them from back here. I wish you could. You have to go to the back seats and then pull on levers and fold them down. To close up the trunk lid, there is a handle there, and it lowers down easily. I'm gonna nestle in to the driver's seat now. Hey, cabin crew. Looking in front of me, I've got this leather wrap steering wheel with perforations at 9 and 3, red stitching on the inside. It feels great in the hands, not overly thick like some of these performance-oriented cars can be. On the back side of the wheel are these plasticky paddles. I don't mind the action or size, I just wish they were aluminum. Beyond the wheel is a digital gauge cluster, high resolution, reconfigurable, head-up display with a Prestige trim, injection molding for the upper dash, like the red contrast stitching, and this carbon inlay. It's got a nice weave to it. It says Quattro. That trim, by the way, is just for the S3. The infotainment has not really been updated, so it's the same responsiveness, same resolution, and it does still have haptic feedback, which I like because it tells me message received, cuts down on distraction while driving. And I do still like that there are physical controls for climate settings, for seat heating, and for your drive selections. 2 USB-C ports there. They added a wireless smartphone charging pad for 25. This trim is still in gloss black, and it's still in a high traffic area, so it's going to smudge and scratch, and I just don't like this trim. I'm also not the biggest fan of the way they do their volume and seat controls. I want a knob. I don't want this scroll wheel thing. Start stop buttons there. We've got 2 cup holders. I like this flat black material. I wouldn't mind if that was there. 12 volt emergency brake. Inside the console, you really don't have much storage space at all, but the armrest is adjusting, so you can bring it up to a nice place for your arm to rest. As far as visibility, no issues out front. Small A-pillar, B-pillar is not that bad. C-pillar does have a bit of a blind spot, but you have standard blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic. So overall, apart from some questionable material choices, this cabin feels very upscale with a few options baked in. Now, let's go take this Audi S3 for a drive. All right, let's fire it up. Bit of a rumble on startup from the 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder. Hey cabin crew, thanks for joining for this first drive in the 25 Audi S3. I'm going to begin by selecting my drive mode here in the drive select screen. And let's start out in comfort mode, just to get a feel for things. I'm going to throw on my seatbelt and click back the gear selector. Click it forward into reverse, and though I was confused, this is actually quite intuitive. I prefer it over the older little nub you had. That brings up a high-res camera system with trajectory lines, and I'm going to ease away here before then clicking down into drive and rolling forward. But I don't want to go terribly far without testing the turning circle because I have the space here. So wheel is cranked, and I'm going to pivot around in an acceptably tight circle. For this small of car, you might expect more, but it is a front drive based all-wheel drive system. Still going to be very maneuverable around town. And here's another good initial test. This is a steeper driveway, and the S3 is lowered by 15 millimeters compared to the A3, so are we going to have any clearance issues? No scraping. I'll take it. And you know I'm not going to miss a chance to do the world-famous horn test. What's it sound like in the S3? Oh. Piercing. Big noise from a small car. Let's discuss the powertrain in this 25 S3. We still have a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder, but now it makes 328 horsepower and the same 295 pound-feet of torque. So it's an increase of 22 horsepower over the old S3 and a whopping 127 horsepower more than the A3 sedan. That is directed through a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic. That's the same as before, although when you get under full load, the shifts are faster. I'll get into that more later. And routed to a quattro all-wheel drive system. And for a dual-clutch transmission, which tend to be a bit clunkier than torque converter automatics, this one isn't all that pronounced in the gear changes, both speeding up and slowing down. I can discern them a little bit, but there's no shunking you forward or backward when you approach a stop sign or when you're just pulling away. And one really cool thing about this new turbocharger in the S3 is the preload feature. So even from low RPM, that turbocharger is already spooling, and therefore you don't have to wait for the boost to build. And that's most noticeable when you're just moseying around town, because when you're in the dynamic modes, you're gonna be in a lower gear, higher RPM, on boost. When you're stopped at lights, to save fuel, the S3 is going to turn off the engine. But when it comes back on, there's just a little rumble in your seat. It's not very noticeable at all. If you did want to turn it off though, it is nice to have a physical button here so you don't have to hunt around in the infotainment. This S3 I'm driving is riding on the optional S Sport suspension with adaptive dampers. As standard, you get steel springs that are set up to be a bit stiffer than the A3. I can't talk about those because I haven't driven that Audi, but I can say the adaptive dampers do a great job filtering out potholes like that and cracks and just imperfections in the road. So I just feel little bumps into my seat. I don't feel the jarring impacts. It is easy to feel out the right amount of pedal pressure to smoothly come up to a stop. The brakes are not grabby. I love that for around town ability, but let's spice things up a little bit with a launch control in the S3. So I've gone into the dynamic plus mode, which puts ESC into sport, and that allows for launch. So I'm going to hold my foot on the brake, pin the throttle, build up the revs, and let it go with my race box recording for that accurate timing. Here we go. Holding, launch active, letting go. No hesitation, out of the hole quickly, and there's 60 in 4.56 seconds. It is a spicy little meatball. I do think that launch would have been a little bit quicker, matching Audi's estimate of 4.4 seconds if we were on a better road surface. This one is just chewed up. Quattro is great for quick acceleration out of the hold, but what about in the mid-range? So I'm just going to change lane here and add about 25 miles per hour, just like that. Let's do it one more time now from around 60 miles per hour. Yeah, 20 miles per hour. So quick. It's that kind of acceleration that's more impressive to me. That is more real world. You're on the highway, you spot a lane, you want to get into it, and you have no trouble at all in this 328 horsepower S3. Let's back out of that new Dynamic Plus mode, which, by the way, you have to select a second time that you want the Plus from Dynamic because it will turn that ESC into ESC Sport. I've lost the screen. Here we go. Let's go to Auto and settle into this cruising speed so I can listen to the cabin volume. Yeah, you know, I'm hearing a little more of the outside road noise than I was expecting for the as-tested $60,000 of this model right here. This one has a lot of options. It starts at just 50K, but yeah, I mean, I hear that passing traffic pretty clearly for, granted, it's Audi's entry point into their performance range, but for a luxury automaker, I think there's a little more outside noise than should be in this cabin. I don't really hear wind noise at all, and now that the road surface has smoothened out a little bit, there isn't as much tire noise, but if you aren't on a perfect road surface, you definitely hear some of that on these 19-inch wheels with the lower profile Goodyear Eagle F1 summer tires. Let me put that in perspective though. I'm not saying it's loud inside the cabin. I drove up here in a Volkswagen Golf GTI, obviously a cousin of the Audi S3, and I just expected a little more insulation in the Audi than I got in the Volkswagen, but they're very close. That's where my opinion is coming from. As far as comfort level, beyond the ride quality, these seats have 8 ways of power adjustment and 4 ways of lumbar, so I've found a great driving position for me at 6 feet tall, and the manually tilting and telescoping steering wheel can be brought out to the perfect place for my hands to rest. The seat padding is a little on the firm side. It's not bad. It's not going to absolutely kill your blood flow, but after a while in the saddle, you may need to get out and stretch your legs a bit, although the underside of my legs are supported by the adjusting thigh bolster. And when the speeds do eventually pick up on twistier bits of road, I'll have to see how well these seats hold me in place. But for now, the side bolsters aren't overly aggressive. I'm also thankful for the headroom above, which isn't always a given in a compact car. And so I think you could drive this S3 casually, daily. And I get that impression not just from the space and the comfort level of this interior, it's the fact that the turbo 4-cylinder can be very mellow, whereas, for example, the one step up Audi RS3 with its 5-cylinder is so raucous all the time. It just feels like a dog straining against its leash. You don't get that here in the S3. It feels demure. You know, it's only when you catch up to fellow media on a first drive that you actually get a chance to see the car you're driving from outside it. And here, I can really tell the S3 is a small car. The guy in that bike is just towering over it, and next to that Tiguan, it looks downright tiny. And now a Python yellow S3 has joined the white one, and together we will conquer this twisty section of road once we get past that red truck. Ah, he's clearing off, perfect. That means I need to go back into the Dynamic Plus mode, so hit Dynamic, then Dynamic Plus, and then we have the fun stuff awaiting us. So let's fire it away. Yeehaw! And feel that 328 horsepower put in work. The biggest difference with this new S3 is not the extra power, it is the rending from the RS3 of its torque vectoring rear differential. And so that means that of the max 50% of available power torque that you can send to the rear tires, you can now send up to 100% of that to each wheel. So that is going to allow you to overdrive the outside tires and mitigate understeer. And I felt that immediately when I got on throttle there. It helped me tuck in and pivot through the curve. Because who likes understeer? No one, including Audi. And so they put that great tech on their S3. And that's not the only thing. You also get a new swivel bearing and more negative wheel camber, which is going to do a few things. It gives you more stability in corners. It allows for quicker direction changes and greater steering response. And I feel that right away. I'm probably going to need to pass my compatriot to really explore what the S3 can do. But gosh, I love that power. And as for this 7-speed, it's holding on to the appropriate gear. And I did say at the beginning of the video that there was one change for 25. There are actually two changes. The first is that it makes a hard red line in the Dynamic Plus mode, meaning you can bang off the rev limiter. It's not going to auto upshift on you, and I really like that. The other thing is that at full throttle, in the most aggressive setting, it is going to be quicker with the shifts. So let's try manual mode. You engage that just by pulling on the paddle and see about how quick these shifts actually are. First, will it hold the red line? Yes! Obviously not something you want to do all the time, just for demonstration purposes. It will hold the red line. And as for the shifts, well, I did feel like I pulled the paddle early enough, but I guess not. Prompt on the downshift. I'll pull it here. There we go. The pace of this little car. Now the dimensions are really coming in handy. This is a tighter road, and the S3 feels right at home. Sprightly. Come on, Python Yellow, let's get moving. Now that I've offered some breathing room, let's get back into it. Gosh, the S3 really doesn't mind changing course. It's so spunky. Really, and the brakes had excellent bite to them. You can feel that torque vectoring happening at the back end just to help cure the understeer inclination. And the stiffened suspension really helps the car hunker down, stay flat over all the upward and downward changes. Steering is light, but does build up in resistance nicely. Ooh, G63 getting after it as you turn the wheel. Gosh, and that Turbo 4 is zealous. I like this car so much more with the hardware changes. So much more. The older S3 was just a faster A3. This, apart from the big difference being the engine, has gotten a lot closer to the joy of driving the RS3. Brakes are good. Tires are okay. I've never been a huge fan of Eagle F1s. Prefer me some Michelins. Those might honestly be holding this car back a little bit at this point, because it's shining everywhere else. Rotation is a beautiful thing for a front drive based car. It really elevates the performance drive. And I mean, the fact that this car is fractionally more expensive than the last S3, yet significantly more enjoyable, more capable to drive, and starts at the lowest price point of its key competitors, I'm more bullish on this car than ever. And I was already kind of bullish relative to the CLA 35 and the M235i. The Integra Type S, that's a tough one. I really do enjoy that car. Caught up to my Python Yellow friend. It's manual only, whereas of course you can't get a manual in any of the other cars I mentioned, including this one. And though front drive, it's quite capable everywhere except for trying to do a drag race against any of the other cars. The Germans are going to wallop on it. It's a special recipe, but man, this S3 has put a fat grin on my face. And all this great performance is packaged in an attractive product. I think it's as good looking as the Integra Type S in a very different way, very different styling language, and better looking than the BMW and Mercedes. And great creature comforts inside this car. More mature feeling, more contemporary feeling than before. I'm not gonna reach a verdict. It's just a first drive. I need more time with this car, but I am gonna pitch it to you. Which do you prefer? BMW M235i Grand Coupe, Mercedes-AMG CLA 35, Acura Integra Type S, or this new Audi S3? What a simplified name compared to all the other vehicles I just said. Let me know in the comments. I hope you guys have enjoyed this first drive, and I will see you again next time.